Alright, so we are on part 2 of asparagus. We're going to talk about some different cooking methods for asparagus in this video. I have my prepped asparagus here from my last video, so make sure to check that out if you want to learn more about prepping and cutting asparagus. On this video, we're going to start with blanching asparagus. So blanching is great for any time you want to prep asparagus beforehand, whether that be for freezing or just getting it ready for dinner earlier in the day. So definitely keep this blanching technique in mind for either of those preparations. Now, one last thing I will mention is that you can blanch and cook the asparagus all the way through and serve it that way. So this is technically a cooking method in and of itself, but I do prefer to use it as a combination cooking method where we first blanch and then we saute later. Now, before you do any kind of cooking with asparagus, you really want to think about the thickness. I've seen asparagus that's even thinner than this one. Obviously, the thinner ones are going to need less cook time than the larger ones, and the same goes for blanching. You'll only want to blanch the thinner ones for about a minute or two, but the thicker ones can go for 2 to 3 minutes. The thinner ones can be more easily sauteed without any prep, like you can just throw them in a pan and saute them, but the thicker ones especially, it's better to blanch them first and then saute, so using that combination cooking method. So let's check on our water here. It's almost boiling. Once it is, we'll start the blanching process. Okay, so my water's looking good. I also have a slotted spoon and a bowl of ice water ready to go, and I'm just going to start by putting the asparagus in the spoon. And also, don't forget to salt the water. We do want to do that before we put the asparagus in. So once that salt's in, then I'm just going to take my asparagus and drop it right on in. And I'm going to let these go for about 2 minutes, maybe just a little bit longer. While they're going, you can give them a stir every once in a while, see how they're looking. What we want is a bright green color. The blanching is going to lock in that color. So once they've gone about 2 minutes, take out a piece and test it. You can use a fork or a knife. Just make sure it's slightly tender. We want it a little tender, but still crisp as well. Mine needed a little bit longer, but once they're good, I'm just going to start taking them out and putting them right into that ice bath, and that is going to stop the cooking right away. So here's our finished blanched asparagus, and from here, we can do several things. If you want to freeze them, then you can spread them out on a sheet tray, let them flash freeze, and then put them into freezer Ziploc bags. Or we can do what we're going to do next, which is a combination cooking method where we now saute them. And this is a great way to prep them in the morning or whenever you want to get some prep for dinner done sooner in the day. So to start my saute, I'm just going to add some oil into a hot pan. I'm going to let that oil start heating up. And we do want the oil to get pretty hot before we add our veggies. Now you can just add the asparagus straight in here, but I'm going to do a little red onion first. So I'm going to add that right to the hot oil and let it completely saute, start to get a little bit tender before I add the asparagus, because the asparagus won't need a whole lot of time in the pan. It just kind of needs to be waked up and finish that last little bit of cooking it needs. So go ahead and just let that onion saute until it is nice and tender. Again, you don't have to do the onion if you don't want to. My onions are looking really nice. I'm going to season them with some salt, and you can see they've got a little bit of color on them, so that's the perfect time. We're now going to add our asparagus. Make sure to dry it off a little bit after it's been in the ice bath, and then just saute it up. I would say it just needs another 2 minutes or so in the pan till it's nice and heated through and the perfect tenderness. If you're not sure, just test it with a fork. Try a piece of it, make sure it's to the tenderness that you like, and you're good. Now, just as a little bonus thing that I'm going to make here on the side with my asparagus, I'm going to make a little balsamic reduction. So this is just balsamic vinegar that's cooked down until it's nice and thick like a glaze. It's really delicious with the asparagus. It took a lot longer than I'm showing here, but you just want to keep cooking it and simmering it until it gets nice and thick like this. Then you could pour it over the asparagus, and it's just the perfect added little flavor to it. So there you have our blanched and sauteed asparagus. So another great way to cook asparagus is to roast it. So I have a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, and I'm going to grab the rest of my asparagus that I didn't cut up. You could cut it up for roasting, but it looks kind of pretty on the baking sheet, all just in its long spears. I'm going to spread it out, and we're just going to drizzle it with some oil. I'm using avocado oil because that's what I have, but olive oil is really, really great for this. Just a light coating is good, and then you just want to toss it and make sure it all has some oil on it. And then just spread it out again. And I'm going to sprinkle with some salt. You could add pepper. A lot of people like to add Parmesan cheese. It gets a little bit crispy in the oven. It's really delicious. You don't want to add fresh ingredients like lemon at this point. Those you want to kind of sprinkle over at the end. I'm just going to throw this into my 425 oven and let them cook until they're nice and tender. Alright, so here is my finished baked roasted asparagus. I did these for about 10 minutes in the oven and they did turn out really well. They're nice and tender, but I will say I just like the blanched and sauteed asparagus better. It helps keep it a little bit more crisp, and I've never really had asparagus done that way where it turns out stringy. In the oven it can be just a little bit stringy. This wasn't too bad. It was still really good, and when I put this Parmesan cheese over it, it was even better. But that's just something to keep in mind when you're choosing the cooking method you're going to use. Oven roasting is a little bit easier, not as many steps, but I do like the way the blanched and sauteed asparagus comes out better. Either way, I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions about cooking asparagus, let me know in the comments, and make sure to check out my other cooking tips video on this playlist. Thanks for watching. Bye!